Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would have a look at the Datamines which have been coming out the last few days, obviously from Shida. I'll leave some links in the description to a lot of the Datamines, but understand a lot of stuff has been happening today. We have, of course, the Pages of History event, and then also, on top of that, the Object 292 event. So, bunch of stuff happening. Make sure to get involved. Make sure to have a look at how these events go. In this video, we'll have a look at also how many points per kind of game mode you need for the Object 292, and also rank. They're using a very similar system since we've seen from the summer event and also the winter event, so it'd be nice to kind of go through. Anyway, let's go through the Datamines and see what's there. So for the first datamine, we had the Object 292 added. Now I've already had a look at it in the game, so you can have a look at that video, but just for some additional kind of stats around it, its BR was obviously 10.0, and its spaded repair cost in realistic was 6,409 SL. The vehicle itself is actually a non-premium event vehicle, so you don't get premium bonuses, and also you don't get it fully modified. And there's been a lot of discussion around its BR of 10.0, and all I gotta say about these types of vehicles, they usually have like one really good gimmick, and then they kind of can get outplayed in every single way. The Object 292 is slightly different because it does have the T80 chassis, so it does have pretty good mobility as well, but it doesn't have any machine guns, doesn't have smoke grenades, doesn't have thermals, so it's a little bit kind of all over the place. If I compare it to the T80B, which is at 10.3, which one do I take? I mean, probably the T80B every time, just because it has all of those additional factors, but we'll have to see how it goes. I think at 10.0 it'll feel really good, it's just you'll be caught out a lot because you don't have those additional features. Then, the M55176, the main Battle Pass prize, that actually got 3D tracks added, which is kind of cool. They added a new weapon icon for drop tanks, so I wonder if drop tanks will ever be able to do damage to enemies in some meaningful way. I do remember somebody talking about the fact that Swedish drop tanks, especially on some of their vehicles, could be used as kind of napalm drop tanks, which I feel like is quite fun. So maybe we could get something like that. And also, they did some tech tree icon changes, along with adding the Object 292. A bunch of Japanese vehicles got changed, but the more interesting ones, at least for me, are the Year 2 M105R TAT and the M105 TAT. These two vehicles were actually removed from the game a long time ago, and I mean 10 years ago at this point, or maybe even 9 years ago. These were vehicles which were added, which were very similar to the other Year 2s that we have in the game. The only real difference, I believe, is like maybe the turret is slightly different on them, but not a huge thing. They were removed alongside a lot of other vehicles in the early days, and I don't really know why they were ever added. There was always a kind of idea that a ton of these vehicles were added to break the good old Guinness World Record, to basically say that War Thunder had the most vehicles in the game compared to any other game, and then they were removed because, well, they were basically just duplicates. That's why there's like 7 Sparvieros in the German tech tree, and all of these general things. But it would be nice to see these vehicles back, especially for collectors or just general people who started playing the game not at that time, especially since we've had so many people added. They also added, of course, the loading screens, which is pretty cool, not just for the Battle Pass, but also for the Call of the Dragon as well, to have a look at, and a ton of text changes, just kind of changing the wording of different stuff. The main new texts, though, were all about Call of the Dragon, and also MBT, surprisingly. Didn't realize that wasn't in the game. And then also the good old Esmond was added too. Now this one actually caused a little bit of controversy, and I'm wondering if I'm probably going to make a video on it either today or tomorrow. But good old Esmond, our boy Eugenie, there was a lot of calls that the actual art behind Esmond, or even the whole profile picture itself, was AI generated. And to be quite honest, it could easily be AI generated. A lot of these companies now use a lot of AI generated content, but they have done for years. And usually what happens is you will make something that is AI generated, give it to an artist to touch up the areas where it is kind of, not right. And then, there you go. Easy peasy. Maybe this time something like that happened, but the person just missed them. The big ones for me that look super AI generated is actually the esports ones that we've seen over the time. The esports profile pics that around the place just look insanely AI generated. But I'll probably talk about that in a video. The AI topic's an interesting one. Obviously for me, I use some of it in the thumbnails and have a bit of fun with it. And as somebody who doesn't have a lot of artistry behind him, like I'm alright at the imagination part, but when it comes to drawing stuff, it's pretty much impossible. It's been a huge help, at least for me. But for a lot of people, I get why it's annoying. I get why, they feel like their livelihoods are being destroyed. And I get that. It is kind of dull. And I don't agree with the argument about how everything's going to be stale and the same. Because the human imagination part is still there. But as I said, we'll talk about that in a separate video. There was also another datamine from yesterday, which followed the changelog that they did, which followed a bunch of the stuff they talked about in the changelog, but of course there was a bunch of extra stuff as well. For example, not just the Ariete changes, by the way, where they just made it super unsurvivable, or I should say realistic compared to what it was before, because it had two major bugs with it, meaning that it just couldn't die. Like it had a blowout panel where it shouldn't have, and then the upper glacis would just remove secondary shrapnel shards. So if you penned it in the upper glacis, you just wouldn't do any damage, which is just nuts. The M60 AMBT, the 25mm that's on the top of it, they added a two-plane stabilizer to it, which is cool. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but it's nice to see. The KH25 and 29L, the guidance, before launch, it was uncaged. Now it isn't. So it's going to be harder to be able to launch to start with, which kind of sucks. Then also, you have the A109 EOA2. They obviously had the ATGM changes, so now it actually gets ATGM stock, the good old ITOs. That helps it out a lot compared to what you had before. And then, of course, the Gazelle, they made it so you could get the hot missile stock as well. So overall, not too bad. They also changed the avatar, the Eugene Esmond one, which we talked about. That one, as I said, it's really interesting to see how that goes, and we'll probably never see a clarification on that. But as I said, we'll talk about it later on. In the datamine from today, we got the actual task point table, basically showing how many points you need per game mode in order to complete the 45,000 points per day in the Object 292 event. Now, these multipliers are very similar to what we've seen before in the summer event and the winter event. So technically, the higher the rank that you are, and also the technically, I suppose, higher the game mode, it will be less. So for example, if you are playing rank 7 or 8 ground SB and you only have to grind out 20,833 points overall to equal the 45,000 points per 2 days. So it's a lot easier to do compared to a lot of things. And this is something which, they've done with all of these different events. For me, when I have a look at it, ground RB rank 5 probably looks like the juiciest, or rank 6. Only having to grind out 33,835 points looks nice, and the multipliers themselves are quite good. Just remember, when it comes to this event, since the Object 292 is a ground vehicle, you can only grind this event in the ground game modes. So you can't grind them in air, you can't grind them in naval. And overall, I would say generally you should pick what you think is easiest to grind with, or something that, you know, you enjoy the most. For me, I'm just going to be spading vehicles while doing this. I feel like I can get 45,000 over 2 days by just playing, but obviously it depends on the person, and it depends, you know, what you like. But for me, I would say ground RB, rank 4 and 5, that's probably the easiest area to do it in. You get the most matches as well, and CAS isn't as insane, and you know, enough people spawn as well. Because one of the issues with going really high tiers on these things is you'll get those maps where, you know, you'll bang off and you'll do really well, but you'll also get those maps where people only one spawn and then you don't get anything, so kind of sucks. They also added a bunch of new decals, and a ton of them are for the event. You know, you got the black dragon, golden dragon, the green dragon, you know, all of that stuff. So that is pretty cool. But then you have two kind of special ones which have been added. The first one is the UU Girl Heart. So this is another weeb one. This seems to be a kind of sponsorship deal or some kind of partnership with a Chinese company, which offers a service to kind of play War Thunder through. So this is probably a little bonus that you can get while going through it. And then the other one is an AMRAAM. And it's an AMRAAM with 2 women. So, you know, best of both worlds. The Gemini Zodiac is actually what it's called. And this, I'm guessing, is going to be for the next Battle Pass. Gemini, if you don't know, it goes between the 21st of May to the 21st of June, right? And if you actually have a look at this season of the Battle Pass and when it goes to, because obviously, you know, it's like 3 seasons nowadays, it's going until the 24th of April, right? So since this is May to June, that would be kind of the period of the next Battle Pass. So, I mean, maybe we get AMRAAMs in the next update in March. This would kind of signify that. Or maybe it's just a random decal which exists to get people hyped about things. At the end of the day, it's a pin-up, and it's a pin-up with a cool thing. These get added every time to the Warbond shop. I've actually started collecting them, but there's so many of them, it's kind of tough to do. There's also a bunch of other decal changes for the various pinups, but at the same time, it's hard to like work out what's gone on with them. So yeah, probably just little touch-ups to bring them all up to a standard. Another thing to grind out in the Battle Pass if you enjoy that stuff. That's all the Datamine stuff. I think in general, it's nice to keep up with the event and see what's going on. Overall, this event ain't looking too bad, at least for me. I'd like to hear opinions, though, especially afterwards. We'll do a post-mortem and see how everything's going. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.